there's absolutely good reporters out there. There's good video game reporters out there. But I do think that, people in the YouTube commentary community, there are good and bad ones too. I mean, Tim Pool's an excellent, unbiased reporter, in my opinion.
Hey everybody, welcome to Casually Hardcore episode 24. Joining us today is Jeremy from TheQuartering. We're here to talk about the CNET hit piece that was run pretty much on and against you, Clean Prince, Downward Thrust, Upper Echelon. There was this like massive list of these, what they were trying to target as angry YouTubers that are essentially, it seemed like they were trying to pivot this from the, that you guys were the cause of this, and essentially we want to explore that idea. The article comes from CNET. Ian is the author, and he was also going on a tweet storm around the same time, so we invited Jeremy on, and he's so thankfully graced us with his presence to kind of give his perspective. We have a lot of questions, we got a lot of kind of concerns, we see a lot of weirdness when all this is said and done, and so I think hopefully this will be an interesting and fun conversation overall to have. So welcome, Jeremy. Why don't you introduce yourself to those especially on our channel who might not have heard of you, what your channel's about, what you're playing, things like that. We'll do that first, and then let's dive in to what Ian did, and then really talk about the whole kind of situation.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. Sorry, I've been kind of hard to get a hold of, but the channel itself is, I would say, a pretty basic carry type channel, but I cover pop culture, so movies, video games. I do tend to lead into some of the more kind of censorship issues or YouTube as a whole issues, because they kind of affect my life, obviously. But most of what I cover is kind of the world around video games, not necessarily technical, the nitty gritty of them, but more about covering the actual coverage itself. So usually for some laughs.
Chris, why don't you dive into, I want to talk about kind of Ian's Twitter storm first, kind of because this kind of deals with the gaming culture around YouTube. And I like you've spent a lot of time reading through kind of Ian's tweet storm. I think that's a really important place to start, because I think that actually leans into overall one of the real core issues that's going to be addressed here today.
So Ian Scher over at CNET, just to kind of introduce him since he's not here, is one of the writers over there. His job title is editor at large. So he basically is a writer that writes on CNET about gaming technology and so on, goes to WWDC, goes to E3, and writes all these things. And his Twitter is somewhere in a mix between his personal account and oh, I can say this because I'm not at work, but he's still very much covering the news. He's still very much tweeting out oh, look, I got my badge to E3. Oh, look, I'm in the line at such and such event, or I'm with such and such publisher. And it kind of runs a theme. So I haven't followed Ian since before this. This wasn't somebody that I had this past relationship with reading his articles. This article was very much something that caused me to go out and read all of his tweets to get a feel for well, what's the trend here? So I've read every tweet he sent out at least 2 or 3 times, all the way back for months now, which reading anybody's Twitter feedback that far is not a fun task. So it's not anything on Ian in particular, but he has a tendency of saying every tweet, after when you read them all as a big long line, has a tendency of doing this I don't mean to complain, but I wouldn't normally be the one to point out how negative this thing is. I wouldn't normally be the one to focus on the one negative aspect of this. These 4 game developers are doing something wonderful. I wouldn't normally be the one to point at who's missing in this. So
I'm not normally an alcoholic, but I'm just going to have a drink.
So he tends to lean into the same anger that this article accuses, which is part of what made this whole thing really interesting, because on its own, the article, I think, wasn't really anything. It was relatively empty. If you just read it as a standalone piece, he says, hey guys, I think that I found out that there's anger on the internet. Like, it's not news. It's not, but then he chooses to write it from a tone that comes across as like these YouTube memberships and put quotes on things that, like, that's not really an appropriate use of that. That's kind of looking down on it, saying that something's not a membership. Well, it is a membership. It's put out by a real platform. It represents real revenue. It supports a real creator. It's not a membership like, oh, I have a Sam's Club membership, and if you want to pay me $5 a month, I'll meet you at the store whenever you want. So it'll be like your membership. That's a fake membership. That's an appropriate use of quotes. That's not what he does here. He tends to just look down like, you're not important because you're not part of my CBS subsidiary or whatever. You don't have a staff supporting you. So that's kind of my intro on like where I see Ian coming at this from is, we're just YouTubers. You didn't go to journalism. You didn't go to college for journalism. You don't adhere to some group, some union that holds you to journalistic integrity. You're allowed to just look into a webcam and talk about whatever you want. And that's why your views are less than mine.
Jeremy, do you see yourself as like an angry YouTuber? Do you see yourself as a perpetrator of like negative content? Because essentially that's part of what I think the article leans into. I'm curious as to like, what's your self-perception of your channel overall?
Well, I think that the common misconception is that enthusiasm means I'm outraged or negative. When I do my videos, I try to bring the energy, because that's part of being entertaining. I mean, most of these people would have no idea what being entertaining is, because all they do is write words on a page. You know, that's nothing compared to having to entertain people via video or via podcast. You have all day, weeks, months, maybe, to craft something witty, and generally these people still fail at that. So I don't view myself as overtly negative. However, I do cover things that are maybe controversial. I lean into that because, well, that's just good marketing. I mean, nobody cares about, and this is something that is shockingly out of touch by Ian and anybody who writes about YouTubers who cover this kind of things. There are many spin-off articles with it, but it's shocking that they are so completely unaware that, you know, nobody reads the article, X game released on schedule with no bugs. Like, nobody reads that. Nobody watches that video either. So if I'm going to make a video, it's going to be something that somebody wants to watch. And so I lean into, obviously, what any smart marketer would, or any smart entertainer would, and they try to cover things that are interesting. And that's just the way the world is. So do I choose to cover things that are negative? No, I choose to cover things that are interesting. Unfortunately, that just happens to be, at times, things that are negative.
So what are your feelings towards like the algorithm and the way it drives into perpetuating something? So like one of the things Ian said he did is like, hey, starting like a year ago, I found out that there's this negativity on YouTube. So I'm going to go watch negative videos, and I'm going to watch them to take quotes, and I'm going to watch them when I'm at the beach with my, and I'm going to watch them when I'm at home, and I'm going to, and so he's giving you a huge amount of watch time. So as somebody who has access to your side of the analytics, right? Not just Social Blade, not just anything like that, but where you're looking at the real engagement within your behind the scenes app that Google gives us access to. What do you feel like? Do you feel like he would get a fair take on what YouTube is from just going out there and watching videos, or would he be part of the very algorithm that he's reporting on?
No, I think that his conclusion is is based on an absolutely flawed test. YouTube already knows that there's people that watch my videos, that watch CleanPrinceGaming, that watch Downward Thrust. It knows that. It's not looking at the topic. It's looking at, what do most people bounce around with between these two channels? Just like if you watch an ASMR video, you're going to get suggested ASMR videos. It has nothing to do with, for example, if you watch an ASMR video about a video game store, you're going to get suggestions for other ASMR videos, not necessarily video game stores. YouTube looks at what is the maximum amount of time we can keep eyeballs on videos. and it looks at watch time, watch rate, how often you click on recommended. It's not necessarily about the topic. It's about, the genre of videos. So I think that false equivalency that Ian and many other people make is that YouTube knows these videos are negative. I think that's total baloney. It doesn't know that. It just knows that, hey, oftentimes people watch this channel and that channel, so we're going to suggest that channel on a similar topic, and that's how it works.
The quote that comes from it and that stands out that I really took issue with, and just as a disclosure, we did actually reach out to Ian. He doesn't know who we are, but to see if he wanted to come on to talk about this as well. We have yet to hear back from him after E3. So, well, I don't know. I don't know what kind of lead time that he would expect to have it. So if Ian is ever watching this, he's more than welcome to come and talk about it. But he says, and this is where there's a theme here that I personally kind of resonated with. That really kind of troubled me. He says, it's YouTube that picks the top results when you search, and it's YouTube that recommends the next video to watch. The automated software is responsible for more than 70% of the overall time spent on YouTube. And then he says, the New York Times reported it's noting that it's drawn accusations of leading users down rabbit holes filled with extreme and divisive content in an attempt to keep them watching to drive up the site's use numbers. And so, honestly, when I read through this article, he kind of points to you, and I want to get into here in a minute talking about Days Gone and the Kelly, I think it's Paige, or I can't pronounce names correctly, so I'm not going to try. Her
it's either
review of it.
Plague or Plague, I'm not sure. It's a double G. I'm not sure how she pronounces it. Yeah.
But I want to get into that in a little bit. But essentially, as he's phrasing this this article, I feel that he's leaning into his base, in which that this idea that YouTube is responsible for the radicalization of all these individuals. And where I get that is also then from a previous quote in which he says, welcome to 2019, where some influential gamers on YouTube have learned what many others, including the President of the United States. And I found that when he started referencing President Trump in this case, is that that I feel like there is, and I'm projecting, but when I read that, I go, why would we compare these YouTubers to the president, if not but in written word, to get people who already hate the president to relate that anger on to these YouTubers? Because it's not that the president is well loved. It's not a shocking number to see that people have an issue with him, but to bring him in, and as it relates to YouTube, and then go on to this, it's YouTube, it feels like it's setting it. This is an article that's actually probably a series in which that he's setting the stage for other things of deep dives on how YouTube does this. We've already seen this with the Vox Apocalypse and things like that. Now, he said he started this over a year ago, this research, but this article, how much of a lead time did you actually have a heads up? Because you did report that you had a heads up that this was about to drop. How much lead time did you have on that?
More than a month.
Okay. So this was well crafted well before any of the Vox stuff. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious that the article is so poor, given that he had all that time. I mean, in my opinion, as you pointed out, his article is clearly pandering to boomers who hate Trump, because people that really understand the YouTube algorithm, one just outright lie, in my opinion, that he continues to perpetuate is that YouTube is doing this. No, it isn't. You are. Your decisions of the videos to watch is what is driving the algorithm. The narrative out there clearly is that there's YouTube behind the scenes, puppet mastering people. That's not true. This guy,
3 million channels.
yeah, this guy is just, in my opinion, nobody's that dumb. He knows that if you watch Jim Sterling, you're going to get suggested other video game channels. It's that's how an algorithm works. They look at, like I said, historically, not only what other channels do people watch outside of Jim Sterling, but they'll prioritize channels that are the best of those. So if you watch 5 other channels, which of those 5 channels do people spend the most time watching videos? And that'll be the one that they push the most. The algorithm you're recommended is a result of your own individual decisions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where this is projecting the responsibility over to YouTube, where in my mind, Chris and I were talked about this when we kind of recorded something when we were originally scheduled to talk with you the first time. And it's like I always try to default on the individual's personal responsibility as to what they watch. If I'm only going to watch that, YouTube's going to say you might really also enjoy this. I mean, do we blame Netflix for me being a couch potato? Do we, like, where does that line draw? And I think YouTube is an easy target because it seems like they will also try to make, at least on a public messaging stand, oh, we're looking into it. But this obviously goes a step further. Chris, you look like we got a lot of questions here. I want to dive in, but I want to make sure you get some opportunity to ask.
No, I think it's what's interesting about this is the whole concept that somebody has to lose. The whole concept here that there has to be a winner and a loser. And what actually comes out of this is not that. Like, if you go look up these channels' stats after this, the ones he listed, upper echelon, Clean Prince, Downward Thrust, Legacy Killer, TheQuartering, like, they're not doing worse because of this. So the idea that I think maybe there was a time when that's how print media worked. You could call somebody out, but like even cancel culture now, which you just recently put a video out on, like, it doesn't necessarily cancel somebody. It might put them away for a time, but it doesn't, if they're really driven and they want to keep posting and they want to find their audience and stick to their base, they can be bigger for it.
It's like timeout culture.
Most people understand. I mean, how many times has Rice Gum been canceled, or these channels just refuse to go away? Everybody wins with cancel culture. Fans are entertained by the drama. I mean, there was a time where, I mean, to be honest, I can't name a channel that Content Cop legitimately killed. I mean, it was temporary stuff. People thought that it ended up destroying Tana, Mongo, or Mojo. Didn't. The only channel that people can point to is Leafy, but that's not true either. YouTube themselves are the one that basically took care of Leafy by removing its monetization or So, I mean, the best, most effective videos still help both channels. That's why those videos continued to happen.
So when we ran the numbers, like just on your channel alone, like this was really good for your channel. Prior to the article going, we saw that you were on an average of 432 subs a day. Now, obviously, there's ebbs and flows, and content is going to drive that. So we didn't do a Power BI business analysis of it overall, but just looking at it. And now you were currently, when we ran the numbers for Friday, you were at 1,654 subs a day, which represents a subscribership increase of 282% growth. Your viewership growth almost went up by 50%. So it was right in the 40s about the number of views that you pulled in from this. So strongly capitalized, obviously, on this, which is great. Congratulations. I was just like, it's always good to see, because I've always said that YouTube is a collaborative engine as opposed to, like, people talk about live streaming. And I go, live streaming is more competitive because you can technically really only watch one person when they're live. But YouTube is always going to be recommending other things to watch in succession. Now, like, you also talked about legal action being kind of brought. Are you still pursuing that, or is that something where you're just like, listen, you wrote this up about me and it really helped my channel out, like, I appreciate it, like, were we good, or what's your thoughts there?
Well, I don't want to comment, like, specifically on anything, but what I can say is that he made some accusations about my channel, but I think in court, I would have a hard time proving that it cost me anything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I can point to directly the advertisers leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I can also.
Did they leave you specifically? Like, did Honda say no to the court, or did they say no to gaming?
Well, all I know is that they said no to the quartering. That's how he worded it.
Okay.
If I were to sue and go through discovery, I could see the emails that he sent to these companies. If those emails were like, hey, known white supremacist Jeremy Hambley, you have an ad on his videos, well, then we have a serious issue.
Yeah.
So, I'm deciding if it's worth it financially, and I'm still kind of considering it, but it's, we'll see. We'll see.
Because essentially that was a part of the kind of what Chris and I were curious about, because we don't actually see CNET's numbers, but as you said, I believe they've played it in their base. I think this article did great for them. I think the sharing of this, people don't probably like, because we also see the problem in which that people don't really read articles; they just read headlines, and so. I'm surprised my mom hasn't contacted me to say, like, why are there angry gamers on YouTube? Because, because that's our barometer. As soon as my mom contacts me about like what's going on in the thing, I know that it is spilled over into this whole other beast, right? So I haven't heard from her yet on that, but I was kind of curious because it's like I'm honestly betting that they're over there patting themselves on the back, saying like, this is great, look at the numbers. Because honestly, when he goes out on this tweet storm, starts tagging everybody, at the end of the day, like, our conclusion being kind of like the third party in the room on this is that everybody won except, everybody, like anybody not listed. Anybody not listed in that kind of thing didn't win. And the curiosity, which we don't know, which you don't know either, is that if Honda said, okay, no to gaming at all on YouTube, like then more people actually lost because of Ian's kind of like article. I just have to wonder, like, are they thinking that this is good? Like, did they think like, we're going to get these guys, one of those moments in which that, look, we totally destroyed their channel. Look, we've done this great service. That's where I really would love to know, like, you said you had some context kind of alerting you to that. Like, do you have any insight as to, do they think this is going to be something big on their end, or?
They think, from my internal sources there, they feel like they have egg on their face. So, there's a reason
after the fact?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there hasn't been, they look really bad that his own coworker told me about it weeks ahead of time. And then I put that out there and then it happened. They probably this is just based on what I've been told, they spent a good amount of time deciding whether or not to just kill it, because putting it out makes them look really bad. You have a mole amongst you, essentially, and that's not a good look for a journalism company. I think
here's the quotes.
I think they probably feel like, I mean, look, a lot of these articles, they know that if YouTubers don't cover it, they aren't going to get much traffic. It's not like people, Google doesn't really refer organic traffic like it used to. Maybe they got decent on-site traffic and good impressions, but I think most YouTubers I got to ahead of time did the appropriate thing and linked the archive. Some didn't. And if those videos got 100,000 views and 5,000 people, 2,000 people clicked the article, they probably did. I think you're correct. They probably did see a good traffic spike just from people who aren't diligent about using the archive link. And, but, with ad block and, I guess people know CNET now. People remember CNET exists, but for what? Being publicly dragged.
But there really is no bad press, though. Like, just the fact that people know that they exist. Like, it's one of the whole points of advertising. And advertisers like, oh, like somebody asked an advertiser, are ads really effective? And they're like, yeah, but maybe it's not the first time. They want to have that over and over and over and over again, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I've seen CNET. And after time, somebody might easily forget like why that originally came up in their history. But it's all like, I feel like a game.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I would agree that traffic-wise, I think Ian could point to the fact that a lot of new traffic came. But I also think there's something to the fact that he has literally not mentioned it. Like, Ian probably lost in this, in my opinion. He can't post anything on Twitter right now without getting destroyed. If you look at his feed, he's got 8,000 followers, and he's posting pictures from E3 and getting like one like. So either they're bots that are following him or nobody really cares. I don't think he increases clout at all. And the next article he writes will be, even if it's amazing, it'll be like, oh, you're that guy. Now, I think you're right. It was clearly, I mean, the fact that he put out a dictionary, a glossary of terms that the kids are using, I think you guys correctly identified that he's clearly understands his base, like moms and soccer moms and whatever. He wasn't writing that article for kids; he was writing it for their parents, so they probably read it. I think.
So, do you think he did something wrong by contacting advertisers? Because, like, if in my mind, part of reporting would be if somebody's funded by advertisers to reach out and say, now how you do that, there's a big difference between, hey, I'm just trying to understand. I see that you're associated with a lot of YouTube channels. What does that look like? Can you explain to me, do you know the channels? Do you know how many channels? Do you know the topics? Like, there's a very different tone with asking it like that and saying, did you know you're associated with this X person? Allow me to insert whatever adjectives I feel about them. And, it's a much more leading question.
Well, I've seen, they're absolutely wrong to do that. And here's why. There's an established action and reaction when these journalism places contact advertisers. It's like saying, I know what's going to happen when I contact advertisers. They're just going to pull. Everybody knows that. So Ian knew that. So the fact that he contacted these people at all tells you what he knew. He tells you a lot. Secondarily, I think he outs himself as having some sort of personal vendetta against me because I made fun of his coworker. He even includes it in the article later on. I've also, thanks to Tim Pool, he shared with me several emails of these reporters, emails to advertisers, and they always sound exactly the same. I saw 5 different ones, and all of them were almost identical. Hi, my name's whatever. I'm a senior editor at whatever. I notice your ads are appearing on videos that we think are targeted harassment. Do you have any comment on that? I'm on a deadline. Mm-hmm. They'll always put, I'm on a deadline. I'm on a deadline. So basically it puts them in a place where I have to respond. I'm not going to say, I don't have time to figure out what the heck's going on. So just say, we'll pull it.
Yeah. Well, there's a strength also for the company too, because let's be real. From a business level perspective, I would venture to bet that these companies are businesses and not individuals who have any leaning one way or the other. Meaning that pulling an ad, especially from YouTube, can tend to end up being that they can maybe get a better buy for those ads in the future, where if it happens in bulk. Now, I think there's a risk there. I think YouTube doesn't play its hand as strongly because YouTube is as a part of Google, but it's technically the second largest search engine in the world. Google just in general being the best, where is Honda, obviously you said they just pulled from you, but are they willing to risk every gamer who needs to have a vehicle being Toyota? It's it just opens the playing field to say oh, fine. If you don't want to be a part of where these conversations are having, because there has to be a point where it's right now easier for them with kind of the cancel culture mindset, with the outrage culture mindset coming in and saying, well, you obviously agree with this one individual, and that's not how ad buys work. You can filter out things, etc., but that it's not wait, are there people here? Do they need vehicles? We can sell them vehicles, or we can sell them ice cream. What I don't. That's obviously the only play that I feel like some of these articles and some of these things have. That's their only real maneuver to take it into the stratosphere, to get that viralness about it, to try to get that anger behind it, utilizing the very things he's accusing you and these other channels of in his own favor. I want to move to. Do you have any follow up, Jeremy, or any thoughts on that?
I was going to say, I guarantee most of them come back. Mm-hmm. GameFly is not going to not advertise on gaming channels. Get out of here. Maybe Honda, maybe they don't come back, or what was the other university? DeVry, maybe they don't. But I guarantee you I'll see GameFly ads on my videos. I had this morning on my one of my most recent video, there were ads from Borderlands 3, and it's well known that Randy Pitchford hates me. I don't care. It's not, they're running ads on my channel because they work. And ultimately, when you somebody at Honda or whatever to ask for comment, remember that Honda doesn't probably have an internal marketing team. They probably have an agency, and they probably just forward that email to an agency, and they're like, we just took it off. We just blocked it real quick. No big deal.
It's the safe bet because it's like,
Yeah.
we pulled, and then it's like, okay, is everything cool? Well, let's just continue on. Like everybody, because the attention span in society feels like it's less than a week. So like usually after a week, when people have moved on to the next thing to be mad about, like there you go.
Yeah, I don't see how Honda stays off of all of YouTube like this September when they come out with another round of Hondas. Like they should already have had an ad campaign in the works. So on that kind of note, I mean, and Ian, like he wrote his questions. One of them was like, I asked YouTube what their thoughts were on like, making negativity with, like, his question was like, hey, what are your thoughts on the fact that you're a terrible person? It's like, why did I even respond to that? Like, what part of that is like, oh, well, let me open up this kind email. Like, I'm just going to move on with my life.
Well, that's why these people, in my opinion, many of them are all hacks. It's like it's just like if you look at sports, I'm a big sports fan. And when you watch it, like post-game interviews, these people like ESPN already have the articles written, and they're like, ask their question they ask the question in a way that the response from the player already fits the article that's already written. You see it play out in real life if you watch press conferences. And you even, like, Stephen A. Smith from ESPN has said that, when he defends some of the ridiculous questions that some of the reporters will ask, he'll say, no, they already had two versions of the article written, and then so they asked for a quote that fits the blank that's left. And that's exactly what CNET did. This whole article was about smearing YouTubers and doing exactly what he accused us of doing, is like riling up your base and for clicks and revenue. That's exactly what Ian did. Everyone saw it, and that's why he became a laughingstock in our community. But as you guys pointed out, we weren't his target audience anyway.
Right.
So it probably it probably riled up his audience too. It probably made a few moms say, my kid watches all these video game YouTube channels. Better block.
Nothing worse. Nothing better than getting a parent afraid. Right. Nothing better than getting a parent afraid. That's because that ends up being something where it's like mad. Like there was always a kind of a segment here in DFW, Mad Moms and Minivans, is like you get these ladies like, and they have power. They have power like with their voice, because it's like, okay, but they also are busy, so they can't take the time to really like fully follow through, right? You can't sit here and say, oh, to really get a good context, you need to read these 10 articles, and then you're going to have a great understanding like Chris did. Do you think there are any legitimate journalists like out there still in the world? Because you hit on this target.
That's a bold statement.
Well, I'm just saying, like, he hits on it. Like I want to like be real about it, because it's that I see a risk in, because you discounted them, and you use quotes in this case, but there's a risk in that, the fact that they discount us and then we discount them back, and all it is a circle of like, man, look at these guys, what do they know? So if you think there's legitimate journalism, who do you think out there is doing really good journalism right now?
Well, when I'd say journalists, I'm referring to a particular sect of them. There's absolutely good journalists out there. There are journalists that are good and bad. Schreier is a perfect example. When he does his deep dives and real journalistic articles, he's the best there is, in my opinion. But he also has some horrible takes. But when he puts his head down and does some real investigative journalism, he can have really good articles. But then there's I won't name names, but there are other articles that, like Kotaku and Polygon, that the writers are consistently bad. And those would be what I might refer to as a journalist, that they're just baiting for, to get the website traffic. So there's absolutely good reporters out there. There's good video game reporters out there. But I do think that, people in the YouTube commentary community, there are good and bad ones too. I mean, Tim Pool's an excellent, unbiased reporter, in my opinion, who also plays off the same. What works for Tim is that he is respected, but he also covers, Tim covers like Captain Marvel and stuff like that, because he sees the trends. He understands what people are watching, but he'll also cover a lot of more political stuff, and so people trust him. So there are good people out there. There are good video game writers out there, but I think there are way more bloggers than journalists. There are a lot of bloggers masquerading as journalists who really only ever write editorials, and that's why I mostly take, the full outrage about a single poster in Cyberpunk 2077 has spawned 100 articles. Literally any one of those articles is written by a journalist, in my opinion, because nobody cares.
You've noted in a lot of your posts recently that one of the statements that I've heard you say offhand is like, "This is why I don't quit my day job. Like this is the reason." And it's usually right before you point out, you say thank you to the people that support you off platform.
Yeah.
So right before, thanks to you guys, like that's what offers a lot of stability to in a market like this. Do you think that because of the way you cover things and because of the tone that you often take, that you are more prone to being, to quote your most recent video, canceled, to be hit more than somebody that takes a more, I guess, like a more somber tone?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It also, when I take on journalists like directly, that's what puts me in the crosshairs, because regardless of what I say about, their relevance, they still wield a lot of power in that any chump at Kotaku can reach out to Google or YouTube and Kotaku and get my channel demonetized, or they have a better chance at it. They'll say, oh, he's using all sorts of hate speech, blah, 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 blah. And it's the journalists, when you take them on and you embarrass them, that become the most dangerous. So I only, I do it once in a while, but I am trying to pick my spots. It does, when I cover something like, for example, when I did a lot of the videos on She-Ra, how that one really pissed a lot of people off. I still have people who can't. They'll say I'm outraged about it. I can't even remember when I did those videos, a year ago, maybe, I don't know. But there's still people that bring it up to me almost every day. Like, oh, that's the guy that was mad that he couldn't pleasure himself to the She-Ra commercial or She-Ra show. Like,
wow, that's really like dark and brutal there.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously I never said that,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I'm like, oh, okay, so you're a liar, great. But when I cover social issues that are really sensitive, that does increase the chance of putting my channel in the crosshair. That's why I will never quit my day job. That's why every penny I make from the channel goes to paying down debt or in the bank. I'm not changing my lifestyle, because I think even if you're a great YouTuber and you avoid any controversy, you get 2 years, maybe. The amount of YouTubers that are relevant for longer than 2 years are probably in the 0.000 percentage.
Yeah, they talk about how like some YouTubers transition like their channel, their audience, their community, and only a handful, like PewDiePie being probably obviously the head of it all, because he's switched for so many different types of content, and people tend to remain in that regards. It's a challenge for sure.
There's, in the video game world, there's like 3 channels that have kind of remained the same. And even they've had a change. You got Angry Joe. He's been around for a long time. He still has maintained most of his base. You've got AVGN. He's literally remained exactly the same, but he's retained his base and his relevance over the years. You got guys like Jim Sterling. But, I mean, okay, that's 3 out of 100,000, 200,000, a million. I don't even know how many, channels that are, covered. It's probably a million, So you have, so I see that, and I understand that the quartering won't be relevant for very long, in the grand scheme of things. So I'm just being smart with my money.
Now, one of the things you said, like there's 2 things that I agreed with, and one I disagreed with or I was confused by. But you were talking about game reviews, and essentially where that your mind, it's like that at least people and YouTubers shouldn't make a big deal about the early access and the free copy, because it fundamentally, even if it, maybe even subconsciously can change their perspective, so that maybe they pull a punch so they don't get hit so hard because of that access, because it buys that level of influence. And I honestly have taken that to heart. We've only gotten one game provided, which was Smash Brothers, but we bought a copy anyway because there's two of us. But that honestly, I always prefer like that perspective, because for me, when I looked at that, when you play it, when I hear you say you won't quit your day job, it wasn't necessarily about your YouTube career, which I found that fascinating, and thanks for sharing kind of that thought. But it was like also that as a way of being unbiased. It's like, I'm not going to quit my day job because I'm not for sale. It's like, okay, if this video does well, it does well. It doesn't matter. This is not how I make my living. And the question I've always wondered is that for those people, and we've asked this on our channel, that are 100% full time, because we've talked about a couple pieces of content. We talk about even the editorials, like what gets you paid. Like, well, we know like this video probably going to have a ton of views. This is going to help if it pays your mortgage. Like, then are you leaning into that? And that's one of the things the article does talk about, that even Clean Prince and even like the other YouTubers talked about, like, well, they didn't necessarily plan on doing this, but that's what people responded to. Chris was talking about Boogie, a time where Boogie was trying to make all this positive content and was being frustrated that people weren't responding to him. Like, he built an audience around Francis, and then that audience wasn't necessarily interested in maybe his positive content. So I wanted to kind of talk about, I wanted to kind of point that out, but I wanted to use this as also a shift into talking about Days Gone. Like, the one video I watched for yours that I just was like, what you said the line that I haven't played it yet. And all of a sudden I asked myself, how hard would it have been for you to go get the game, play it for a couple of hours, and then make that video? That in and of itself, I think, would have fundamentally changed the messaging. So I'm kind of curious if you wouldn't mind talking about, have you played Days Gone yet since the video?
No.
Okay.
I don't really have any interest in it. It's not my type of game.
Then why make that video?
Well, because whether or not I played the game, at least this is in my opinion, whether or not I played the game, the point of the video wasn't to say, well, I thought the game was this. The point was, okay, this person clearly has some political leanings, has a history of really having poor reviews, reviewing a Pokemon game, 7 out of 10, too much water. This person is disingenuous. And, I think it's a valid criticism, but I do think that my video wasn't, hey, here are the reasons that I think the game is better than that. I think they said it was the same or better than Anthem or Fallout 76. And I was like, come on, I don't need to play the game to know that, I consume a lot of videos about a lot of reviews. There are people that I respect, like SkillUp. I look at the aggregate reviews on like Metacritic. You can get a pretty good idea how a game is by mining that data. So I think that's why I don't review games. I did one review once ever, and it was on Apex Legends, and people hated it. So, I mean, people were...
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I mean, people, I should say, weren't interested in it. People don't care about my opinion about whether a video game is good. And I'm cool with that. I often, if you watch when I talk about video games, I try to be like, if you like it, cool. I don't care. That's all that matters. If you like the game, like as much as I rip on Fallout 76, there's still 1 million players in that game. There are people that like it. So I guess to answer your question, I didn't find it necessary because my viewers don't care about my opinion about video games, like in general. They want stuff like that where I can.
Speaking of your viewers, like one of the things you said about Ian is that when he reaches out to an advertiser, that advertiser is going to pull, regardless of what he says. Doesn't matter how he says it. That
this is the most popular guy. He's so nice.
Let me just get out in front of this. Like, I'll just tell you, I don't care about any one place. I'm playing 10 million ads a day across the whole globe. So if you have a problem with one, I don't really have time to get in the weeds and seek out if that's somewhere I want to be. I'll just pick a different, like, my ad agency just said, hey, I want to buy 10 million ad spots. And they just took care of it.
Right.
So their natural reaction. So one of the things you say is like, don't reach out to these people. You say it all the time, repeatedly. Don't reach out to these people. Don't attack these people. But you have to know that when you make a series of videos on a subject, or even just one video on a subject, that if you target a creator or if you target an outlet, that your audience is going to wield that. Does that give you any pause in like when you have a negative thought on somebody, like, should I put this negativity out there, or is this one I should just let pass by?
No, never. I cover the topics regardless of what I think people will do, because people will do whatever they want to do anyway. And, to be honest with you, people are individuals, and, I can disavow, which I always do, contacting people directly, whether it's, I do believe fundamentally you shouldn't do that. But from a business perspective, I can tell you that I don't want to be associated with that either, because it's bad for my channel. It's bad for my reputation. I lose if I send a mob to somebody. So I try to tell my viewers that I've said it in those plain words. Like, you're oh, sorry.
Yeah, I had it.
Write the timestamp down. You screwing me over if you do that, because it doesn't hurt you, it hurts me. So do I know that some people will just do it? Of course. But that is just, I don't know, a byproduct.
Can we,
go ahead.
Can we, as YouTubers though, like, as we're all on this same ship, do you have any thoughts on how, beyond going and preaching that message, is there anything that you think that the system can do? Like, do we have any other power than telling people not to do this? Because obviously you're talking to individuals, not bots. They have their own minds. They're going to make their own decisions. How is it that we can help from that perspective? Because they see us, they hear us, and there's that level in which that they could hear you say that, but they believe like, oh, but he really wants that. Like, is there anything that you think we could do? And I'm not saying you, because this isn't a Jeremy thing. This is a YouTuber's perspective and the power that we wield, because people watch us, they listen to us. Like, what do you have any thoughts there about, like, is there any more that we can do in that space?
Well, I think if you stay on message and you say it sincerely, that if I watch conversations on Twitter where people will accuse me of that same thing, I always see 10, 20, 30 of my viewers saying, no, he always says, don't do this. It's not, I don't think you can control people. I think other than self-censoring, which I won't do, like you mentioned earlier, hey, is it that big of a deal? Could you have just not made that Kaylee Plague video? Yes.
Or just played the game for a little bit, just from my perspective, because that's just where I came from. I was like, just to touch it, say, yep, I touched it.
Yeah. I don't think your criticism is I don't think that your point is unfair. Mm. I disagree that I needed to play the game to make my point. Okay. That doesn't mean I'm right or you're wrong or whatever. It just, yeah. But I could have, but I think when I cover something, I cover it and I hope that nothing bad happens. I mean, the nightly news covers the news. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to self-censor myself because a couple of yahoos will go be jerks to somebody. I publicly disavow. I don't want those people subscribed to my channel. I don't want those people watching my videos, because they don't do me any good. When I talked even to Outstar, she sent some videos. She sent some tweets of people saying heinous stuff to her. Not one of them were following me. So it's like, did I really send them? I don't know. Maybe. Did I signal boost it and people who don't follow me? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to go down that hole. If you put out a bad take and people criticize you for it, it's not my fault for shining a spotlight on your bad take. I do what I can to try and convince people to not do that. Or if you're going to interact, please be respectful. But I really don't think there's much you can do. If I believe there's something I could do to stop people from using their own free will, you think I'd be using it for that? I'd have 40,000 followers on my page, my subscribe star. Yeah. So it's just, people are going to do what they're going to do. It's an unfortunate thing. And I'll say again, I disavow. I don't think I really do. I think I've gotten I don't personally attack people. I don't attack people's looks or attack people's life decisions or anything like that. I try to stay on point on the idea of the topic or their take.
So so one of the things that Ian does here, and we don't have Ian here, so like I'll try to do my best to represent. Like if I were him, one of the things he draws his I don't think either of you lost any sleep over this. I think you both feel pretty strong in your convictions that you are on the right side of this, that you did the right thing, and that you were either just doing your responsibility, your job, just covering what was needed to be covered, or and you clearly both disagree with each other. So I think he draws that conviction from look at what I've done, right? I think he's been a contributor at like Wall Street Journal. He's worked with, CBS, CNET. He's covered all these things. He's been to all these events. So he looks at his career and he looks at the size of those organizations, and that's where he's getting his credibility from. It has nothing to do with how many people do or don't read his articles. It has nothing to do with how many Twitter followers he has. You, on the other hand, don't come from an organization, right? So your credibility comes from things like subscribers, things like views on videos. And so those are your metrics. Do you think that's a fair comparison? Like, it doesn't feel like you guys are even getting your credibility from the same place. So it would be really easy to feel like you can just undercut the other guy because he doesn't have the influence as an individual you do, but you don't have the organization power that he does. You talk about like how he could just reach out to Google. That's not something an individual YouTuber can easily do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental difference between somebody who has worked at the Wall Street Journal and somebody who has had to grind to earn the respect of their viewers can be boiled down to, I had to earn every single subscriber. There are a lot of people that subscribe to me that don't agree with me.
Right.
I had to earn my respect. Their respect is borrowed. When Ian Scher puts out an article, he says, I worked at the Wall Street Journal. I was a contributor here. I was a contributor there. He's borrowing the respect of those dinosaur legacy companies.
It's called power mapping, but yeah.
Yeah. So, I think fundamentally, if any reasonable person out there would ask, hey, would you rather have people who respect you or the place you work? I'd rather people be backing me. But you are correct in saying, I can't email Google and say, hey, I have 550,000 subscribers. What do you think about running AdSense on CNET? They don't care. I don't know. I forgot where I was going there. What was the question again?
So is it fair to compare them? Because I see that in both of your articles, he undercuts you because you didn't go to college for YouTubing, right? You didn't. It doesn't require anything. I have a $40 1080p webcam and an internet connection. And debatably, I don't need either the audio or the video to work. I only need one of them to work to be allowed to be one of the 23 million YouTubers. There's no bar to clear. And then he worked at these places, right? They've been around a long time. They're establishments, and in their weakness, in their slowness to change, that comes from a stability. So just like the Catholic Church, right? The Catholic Church may do a lot of things right. It may do a lot of things wrong. But the one thing it is constant. It's been around a very long time, and it's been around because it has been slow to change, because it has been slow to react to things. So the Wall Street Journal has been around for that very same set of reasons. They have a set of principles. They've stuck to them, even when people don't like them, even when people do, even when they've been wrong, when they look at themselves, and even when they've been on top. They don't chase anything. They just keep on going. And so he seems to draw that credibility from that, right? Like, I'm part of a thing. I'm part of an army. I'm part of journalism. And so when he undercuts you, it's really easy to see that power, right? That's where the size of my stick comes from. But you are saying, like, that's fine, but like, I'm a bare fist brawler. I earned this strength. But you, in that same moment, say the weakness of that is that your total lifespan as that bare fist brawler may only be 2 years. Mm-hmm. So when you guys compare each other, I saw you guys swinging a lot of hits, and listening to your tone towards each other didn't really feel in many of your videos and in his piece and in many of his tweets, it doesn't feel like you guys were calm about this. And I don't think that that's necessarily how you should be. I think that it's important when somebody swings at your channel, I understand why you're upset, but it didn't feel like you guys were, Anderson Cooper sitting there calm and composed, like, let me talk to you now. It felt like you guys were swinging, and I just pictured like me and my brother in the backseat of a car growing up, and my dad was going to turn around and say, I don't care who started it. knock it off. And so like, what causes that here? What causes, you guys clearly both feel that you have conviction, that you have strength from your platform. Would anything he have said change the way you act? And would anything you said in response change the way that he manages his career?
Well, if he had not contacted my advertisers, I probably would have responded with a little less venom. I still would have responded, but it probably wouldn't have been so personal.
Well, I mean, he hits you where the only way he really can, right?
Yeah.
That's a financial thing. You're married, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So it's like you're messing with my family. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I think I do think that it is debatable. If the question is, can you compare the two ways that the value of your following? I think I would argue that his credibility, he has none. CNET has it. So when the day he stops working for CNET, he is irrelevant. I will always have mine unless I do something stupid to lose it. So I think it's debatable for sure, but I would be on the side of, look, Ian Scher's probably got the same window of relevance. His relevance will always depend on who he works for. And mine is directly a result of the work that I do and my body of work regardless. So I think I'm in a more insulated position. However, I think it's a reasonable debate that I think, I could end up more in the middle of. There are advantages to working for these legacy companies, stability. He probably gets a salary. He's probably got health insurance. He's probably got a lot of things that you don't get being a YouTuber. So, I do. I'll just.
I can exactly relate to where you're going. Like, oh wait, no one's paid. Like, oh, I'm paying for all of this.
Do you think you'd have the same relevance if YouTube shut anything tied to gaming down, right? So the same way CNET could one day be gone. Imagine YouTube's gone. Imagine suddenly Microsoft does everything right and everybody in the world goes to Mixer. Do you think you'd have that same, because he'd be taking his resume, right? CNET shut down, he'd be packing up his box, walking outside, and he'd be saying, I used to work for CNET when they were respected. I used to work for X, Y, and Z. And that's what he takes with him. He takes that resume of places he worked and his list of references and his body of work and said, I wrote these kind of things under this direction. That's who I am. And you'd be saying, I had a lot of videos on that platform that's now not a thing anymore. Do you think you'd have that same influence on the next platform?
Well, if we're both talking to somebody looking to hire an influencer, then yeah. I mean, I think I have more because I can say, look how many views I got. I average 10 to 15 million views a month. Mm-hmm. You want me on your platform? Let's use an example. When DLive, a new streaming platform, wants to launch, they reach out to me based on the viewership that I have, not the fact that I'm on YouTube. It's like, this dude does work. He talks about gaming. We want him on our platform. So I think if the situation is similar, hell yeah. I think I bring more than him because I can say, I have a following, pay me, and I'll promote yours, and they'll come over.
There's also a big difference though, is that with the camera, with the audio, with the visual, like we build out a relationship with our communities, right? It's like people see you, they know what you look like. You've expressed that, and I'm going to ask kind of about like if this is is there a problem with negativity on YouTube and within the gaming sector? But you expressed on your live stream that you might be interested in going to E3. However, you feel like there's a huge cost. Security, like people actively don't like you. And for me, that honestly was kind of heartbreaking, right? Because E3 for me, I've never been. But I would love to go. It's something that it's like, ever since I was a kid, I've been following video games. E3 was always this mythical place that you can't go because it was like industry only. And now they've kind of changed the rules, obviously. But that was kind of disconcerting. So to that point, like if you can't go because of the fact that you feel like there would be a risk to you that would have a cost to it, like do you feel like it's worth it then to have that kind of perspective, to not just have that sense of influence, but to have that sense of ire that is leveraged against you in that same way?
Oh God, yeah, it's so worth it. I mean, I view that in the lens of, look, I'm positioned as like the people's champ, and selfies with Jason Schreier is not good for my brand anyway. I think a lot of my credibility is I understand who I am. I understand who my viewer is. And yeah, it does suck that I can't go and enjoy E3. I would have loved to. However, for me to go to E3 would be like 15 grand. I could build a beautiful new shed for me to store a brand new lawnmower in for 15 grand. And that's how boomer me would rather spend that money. E3 is largely streamed nowadays. You don't need to be there. Would I love to go to BlizzCon? Absolutely. But I have a family and that's expensive. I don't have, and this is another, knock on not working for these companies. CNET isn't paying to fly me to GDC or to BlizzCon or to E3. If they're not paying for my hotel room, these are all things I have to pay for. So, there's a lot of insulation that you get. So it does, don't get me wrong, it would be awesome to go to E3. There are a lot of creators in this space that I respect and that I would like to meet, like IRL. However, I can just go for 15 grand. I could go fly to Austin and hang out with Angry Joe. I could go fly to Philly and hang out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need E3. I have the audience. I have the funding. I could launch a GoFundMe and say, hey, you want me to collab with Angry Joe? It's going to cost 10 grand and fund it. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather do that.
But you get a sense of legitimacy then in that ire, that you're like you said, the people's champ. You're telling it how it is. You're a consumer advocate. So you wouldn't. And I'm asking this as a question, but this is just what I'm hearing, is that you don't define yourself as a negative channel. You define yourself as almost kind of like the person who's sticking up for the little guy. Like you're fighting for so that like to tell that is that perspective correct in any way or.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I'm not always right. Almost none of my takes are 100% right on. I try to just respond honestly, and I do see myself as a consumer advocate. But yeah, I think that, like I said, getting pictures with industry people is not a good look for me anyway, because I'm talking about, there are channels who shall not be named that have huge amount of subscribers and can't break 100,000 views on their videos, but yet they still get flown out to go see Borderlands 3 and they still get flown out. And it's like, you can have that. All right. Because I can cover Borderlands 3 from my basement and get 3 times the views and not have to lose a week of my life to go shill for somebody.
Do you think that makes them shills when they go to these events?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, and I do think that you can unconsciously be a shill, right? If Randy Pitchford flies me to Florida, to Disneyland, he knows I'm going to vlog it. He knows I'm going to be talking about it. He knows they're going to give me, like, they're going to buy me dinner. They're going to buy me drinks. Every bit of that experience is going to be positive for me. I'm bought. Does that mean you can still critically review the game? Or doesn't mean you can't? No. I think there are people out there like Skill Up. Even a guy I don't like personally, I 100% trust his video game reviews. And this is a guy that gets flown out to stuff. So, I mean, it's just, I don't want to sell myself to be at a conference, so that I'm posting videos, giving them free press in exchange for a plane ticket and a crummy hotel room. It's not, I see what they're doing. I don't fault people for doing it. Some people that cover stuff, that get invited to this stuff, could never afford to go on a vacation to whatever. It's nothing personal. But for me, I think when you put me in a picture, with Borderlands 3 people, you're using my cred as credit by association for your game. And so, I don't want that. If I want to do that, I'll fly myself there and I'll pay for my own stuff. So that way I can say whatever the heck I want about your game and it won't matter.
How is that different? So you said you'd take on Game Fuel, did you not? Do you stand by their product? Like, are you like a proud consumer of Game Fuel? Like the energy drink?
You're talking about Bang Energy?
Oh, Bang. Sorry. Isn't there an energy drink that you were like, yeah, I mean, I would totally support that? Like a shill in my mind is somebody who doesn't really necessarily even stand by the product, right? They're somebody who's swindling you. They're conning you. They're just selling it because it sells, as opposed to like if I'm already going to play a game. So like on the 28th, I'm going to play Final Fantasy 14. And on August 27th, I'm going to play WoW Classic. And so if World of Warcraft contacts me and says, hey, would you like your WoW Classic copy for free if there was a charge, right? Or would you like to receive $200 while you play 100 hours of WoW Classic? Well, I was going to play 100 hours anyway. And so I don't know that I do believe it makes me sponsored, and I should disclose that, but that's not a shill.
No, I wouldn't say that makes you a shill. I think a shill is somebody that says something positive about something, even though it might not be true, or somebody that defends something. And I think when you're somebody who gets flown out and treated really well, the implication is that will go away if you don't positively cover the game. I'm not saying there aren't people who are above that. There are, but then you just don't get invited back. That's the way the games industry works. If you are saying something negative after they flew you out and wined and dine you, you're not getting flown out again. I mean, look at
it's not the goal of PR though, right? I mean, you're talking about a PR company saying we want to get positive spin. Nobody's like, we want a fair and balanced thing. So we want to find somebody who absolutely hates MMOs. We're going to force them to play this game, and then exactly. They're gonna play the best hand they've got.
Well, and you're never gonna. And I think the thing is, you're never gonna see that email that says, "Hey, you have to talk positive about this thing." They just look for somebody who maybe isn't invested, or they're just, hey, I'm an actor. I want to talk about this thing. I could show you just yesterday somebody in Magic the Gathering, a content creator. Let me give you an example. So Wizards of the Coast puts out, they share their spoilers with content creators. These content creators break a new card from a new set, and they get a few retweets, and they're relevant for that minute. It's a big deal if you're a content creator to get a spoiler. A channel who was making videos when I was still making Magic videos sent me an email yesterday when he had previously gotten several spoilers, and then they went dark on him. And he said, and he was trying to contact them like, what's going on? Finally, they emailed back with a link to a tweet that he harmlessly criticized the new set. He said something like, oh, we're going back to this area. We've already been there before. And the email said, well, we were going to give you a spoiler, but it doesn't seem like you're that excited about the new set. So they were watching somebody, and he had the most mild of criticisms, and then they cut him off. So I think, yes, that there are people out there that know that this is the established norm and will purposely not say anything negative. That's a shill. Okay. But I do, sorry for the long answer, but
no,
I do think that there are people that can take this treatment and still, I think Angry Joe isn't a shill, and that guy gets mega access. So now, I think there are exceptions.
Now I want to pivot to kind of a final question, because we've definitely hit our hour, and I want to end on a kind of a positive note though, because before we started recording, you and Chris were gushing over WoW Classic. It was honestly where, like, if you're willing and have it in your schedule for later, I'd love to bring you back to talk about the future of World of Warcraft by going back to Classic in a way, because it seems like a lot of people are really excited about this, especially in the age of streaming. But I want to kind of focus it, because obviously the accusation is angry gamers, negative, blah blah blah. But what's great about gaming? What do we love about gaming? Because essentially, I've been playing Secret of Mana with my daughter, and it is just amazing. It is the best thing since video games, like, just to see her experience this stuff for the first time. So if you have a thought, if you're thinking on it, I let Chris speak, but I want to end on that. I want to end on a kind of a real high positive note of what do we love about this medium, this art, this interactive, experience.
Well, I think the overarching thing I like, especially that definitely coincides with WoW Classic, is the interaction it leads to, the friendships that it grows, and the memories. You look at WoW Classic coming out with 10 or 7 years? I don't know. Several number of years since anyone's played Classic. And so many people who are playing it are watching. I mean, Asmongold had 100,000 people watching him on Twitch raid a dungeon like a week or two ago. 100,000. And it's like, you see that and you're like, Heck yeah. And just like in the world, there's a reason all these TurboGrafx 16, minis are coming back out, and Sega Genesis Mini. It's because people have a lot of fond memories of playing these games, and getting to relive that is awesome. And Blizzard listening to the fans. I've said when I covered Classic, uh, you know, for all of the things I criticize Blizzard for, you have to, if you want to maintain your credibility, you have to commend them when they do something good. And this is them listening to the fans. And if you want to support companies listening to the fans, you should subscribe. We were talking earlier about, you have a crisis of conscience about resubscribing to WoW. And it's like, you know what? I wholly understand that, but also it's like, I kind of have to. I kind of had to reactivate my, and it's like I have to go see Sonic now because Sonic listened to the fans and are redoing Sonic's design. Like, there's no way. I told my wife, I said, yeah, the movie's going to probably be bad, but I can't profit off, the fan outrage and not then support them when they do something good. So when like Sonic gets close to coming out, I'll be making a video to remind everyone who is pissed about the Sonic design that they should buy a ticket and go see it. And that's a win. So, I mean, the community around gaming is probably the best thing.
Chris, you got any thoughts on that?
I mean, I would agree with that. That's why that's why the games that I get excited about has shifted as I've gotten older, and my amount of time in a day that can be spent on gaming has shrunk. I've had to really say, like, what is it about gaming that appeals to me most? And at this point, like, if I can't play it with my brothers who live in different parts of the world than me, and if I can't play it with, my other college friends, Wednesday nights, we all play a game that, and we've shifted games. We always pick a game that can be, you can hop in at any time, you can hop out at any time, because we all have schedules. And, a significant number of the guys have kids, and so we get it. And so, like, that community is something that's really important to me. And then that ability to come back and the game not be dead later. So, like, I'm sure God of War was incredible. There was nothing but good things said, and I'm so thrilled for everybody that had a good gaming experience. But with the amount of time that I have to game in a week, I wasn't going to be able to play it when it was the hot new thing. And to play it later, well, then I'm missing out on whatever the hot new thing is then. So it's easier for me to look at things like MMOs for that, where I feel like I'm part of a narrative. So if I take time off, when I come back, it's still exciting that I'm back. Instead of, like, saying, hey, guys, did you play this game that came out 3 years ago? I just played it and I want to talk about it. Like, nobody's going to want to talk about that with me. So I think that's what makes gaming unique, is that it has such a wide variety of things. And it's what excites me about gaming. As opposed to other forms of mediums, is like, as I enjoy it, I can enjoy it with other people. Pretty incredible.
So, Jeremy, do you have any final thoughts, any hopes, concerns, and where can people find you? I know where they can find you. I'll have the links in the description of this video. But yeah, just what do you have that you're excited about, and any final thoughts you have on this podcast?
Well, I think if I'd leave anybody with anything, it's that the positives in the gaming community overwhelmingly outweigh the negatives. There's a lot to be excited about in the video game world. And I say it often, and I'll use this opportunity to say it again, that is, if you enjoy something, you shouldn't feel bad about it. If you like a video game and the company's done something stupid, who cares? Life is short. You should play the things that you love. And I've said, openly, look, I enjoyed Paul Blart Mall Cop. I mean, that's why I don't say movies are good or bad. If you enjoy it, then you should be unapologetically entertained by it. So if you're out there playing Anthem, or you're out there playing Fallout 76, or you're out there watching movies that are getting, kind of memed on, you shouldn't feel bad. You should just enjoy it because life is short. You can find me on YouTube or Twitter if you're really lucky. You have to use my exact handle, TheQuartering, because I'm shadow banned. But I do enjoy, I want people to know that I enjoy video games. I enjoy people around video games. I enjoy talking about them. And there's always so many games. Like, if you look at TV shows, I thought Game of Thrones was one of those shows that was always more fun to talk about than to actually watch. And I think that there's a lot of that in the gaming world too. I mean, I just installed The Witcher 3 like last week. Same, just, it's like, but everybody wants to talk. Everybody wants to talk to me about it. Like, dude, did you get to this yet? Did you do that? So I love that part of it. So I do love video games. I love the community. and there's just a lot of things to be excited about.
Chris, any final thoughts?
No, I do want to thank Jeremy for coming on. I mean, there are times getting to talk to you beforehand just really made me aware of like how long and how often you've been publishing this way. And like, there are times that you and the other people that Ian named can come across as alarmists. There are times that you guys latch onto something because like you said, I can sit down and I can make 10 videos, right? I only have time to make one today. Which one am I going to make? Well, I'm going to make the one that my audience wants. And obviously that's going to be the loudest and the most emotionally triggered things. So there are times you guys can 100% be playing exactly into what Ian was describing. If you take away his tone, if you strip away his tone and you say like, what is the core of this article about? And it's like, it's about pretty obvious things that people make what people want. You don't sit down and say, well, let me make a video today, publish it to the internet and hope to God nobody finds it. Like nobody does that. I can do better things with my time than edit videos and upload them to a website as private. So I mean, I appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate, like, it's interesting to kind of talk to you in this kind of calm state, as opposed to some of your videos where you're a little more outraged. You come across as a lot more level-headed. So I do appreciate that. It makes it very enjoyable to visit with you. When your content's not always something that brightens my day. It's not. There are times that you report on things that I'm like, well, I don't feel any better for watching this. And I feel the same way about most of news these days. So it's not that you're doing something unique, but it is something that I think it sounds like you're aware of. And so I did want to say thank you for that. And this is something that's going to continue to develop, and there will be more articles like this. This isn't the last time you're going to get hit. This isn't the last time somebody else will get hit. YouTube seems to persevere.
Yeah.
Well, the saying goes, when you're taking the most flack, that means you're over the target, right? I think if I wasn't making a relevant point, then these articles wouldn't be there. And so as long as they continue to exist, that tells me that I'm onto something and I'm going to continue down that path.
My dad always said, you don't make a product and then try to find a market for it. You find a market and then you make a product for it. And that's, I think, the fundamental problem that Ian's article doesn't actually recognize, is that he sets up the premise that the reason why gamers are angry are because people like you and others exist. And honestly, I look at it, I say gamers are angry because there's things to be angry about. And it's that essentially that I felt like you guys maybe not 100%, because it's like you do post good things. Even Clean Prince, he posts like positive things. He talks about like how it's a part of his strategy, but that honestly that it's like you give people a sense of community to feel like they can belong, and it's like it's okay not to like this thing. You're not alone in that regard. And the other kind of side of it is that I know we've also been accused of being a negative channel. In fact, people are like, oh, you're just another negative channel like TheQuartering and Clean Prince. And it's like, well, I think maybe we've posted maybe 7 or 8 negative videos, like over our 1,600 videos that we posted. And I honestly look at that and that accusation saying, like, I bet you, a commenter, only watch negative videos. Like, the thing that Ian is fed his algorithm is that he likes that content. The algorithm is going to keep serving you and finding things to be upset about, and that's how the algorithm is set to work. I don't see the algorithm as good or bad. I think the algorithm is set to do exactly what it does, and it does that very well. In that regard, Jeremy, thank you so much, absolutely, for coming on the program, making the time to sit down and talk about this, because I think it's a really important conversation to have. I hopefully we can continue this. Honestly, I was really blown away just in the pre-show of you and Chris nerding out over classics. So we'll obviously be in touch with that. And thank you everybody for watching this. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and your feedback in the comments below. And then as well as continuing these types of conversations, with many more creators. That's what this podcast is for. And hopefully you guys got some interesting insight into this world and into what is going on behind the scenes from our perspectives as well. So for Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris. Jeremy with TheQuartering. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my name's Jerry, I guess.
Yeah. We never warn anybody. We always just see like...
Wait to see what they'll do.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Hey, it's me. It's been a while since I talked to you guys directly this way, but don't tell anybody. We've got even more epic content planned for this channel. The response has been incredible. We hope to see you. If you're new, hit subscribe, leave us a comment. I'd like to talk to you more about video games. I can't seem to speak my language. All right.